As we continue our podcast series on passive fire protection, hosted by the Encon Group, today we return to Josh Slack from Promat. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Commercial Director. Hasn't changed since last time we spoke?
No, still the same.
Still the same. Glad to hear it. So our podcast series continues to look at all the range of topics, including specific product applications, compliance. And today we're specifically focusing on the benefits of a multi-branding offering by manufacturers. So Josh, what do you mean by multi-branding offering?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me. So when we talk about multi-brand offering, I guess what we're talking about is manufacturers who have a portfolio of products that interface with each other and work together to form wider systems. Manufacturers will typically specialize in a particular type of product. So within our company, Promat, we focus on passive fire protection boarding predominantly. We have Cineat who focus on plasterboard. And I suppose that multi-brand offering is then taking several different elements within a portfolio and then being able to offer them in a way that interfaces to overcome difficulties and create a wider solution.
Okay, so could you give me an example of perhaps where that would be?
Yeah, so as I say, within our company, we've got Promat, who are passive fire protection boarding specialists, really. Cineat, plasterboard company. We've got insulation brands. We've got FSI, fire stopping company. And we have different solutions that you can create from that. So we have something called a through-wall solution, which pulls together products from a number of different brands. But increasingly, we're also trying to test across those different brands for things like interfaces between partitions and steelwork encasements, or perhaps fire stopping into beams.
I'd imagine that certain applications that's an easier thing to try to resolve, whereas if perhaps you go to the through wall side of things, that can become a little bit more difficult, especially if you've got different types of sheathing boards that might be in there, different cladding boards on the outside. That's where it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I think on the face of it, it's quite a simple concept, and like you say, with a through wall system, the idea or the concept again is quite straightforward. But there are actually a lot of different products that go into making an external wall type system, right the way through the main kind of core boarding type products and insulation, all the way back to the fixings and fasteners, and each element has probably got technical challenges associated with them. So yeah, it can get complex.
Okay, so why is this particularly important in relation to fire protection, and why is this such an important issue?
So I think the reason why it's important is because most products or systems within a building, if not all products and systems within a building, will at some point have to interface with other products and systems. You can test a partition or you can test a ceiling system and be satisfied with what it will do. But in reality, that's got to be fixed back to something within a building where the partition terminates. It's got to interface with another system. And the reality is the performance of that system will be dependent on those interfaces and supporting elements in addition to the system in of itself.
Okay.
So all of those elements really have to be considered holistically in order to make a design work.
So when you fire test something, you're fire testing it with all those elements, and you're specifying what the products are on all the elements, not just the board, but the fixings, the framing, all that type of thing?
So yeah, historically you would test a specific system, so like a partition or a ceiling, and you would focus on that element, and that's what the testing standard would dictate to you. But increasingly, we've seen that there is a need within the market to understand and test to demonstrate those interfaces. So I wouldn't say we're there yet in terms of testing all of those interfaces. And one of the challenges is that you have to develop and come up with often ad hoc types of testing methodologies in order to test those interfaces. But that is certainly the direction that we're looking to move in. And I think we recognise that there's a lot of value for installers, for the end users, where you're able to offer the different products across that range,
yes,
rather than end up with multiple manufacturers who you have to bounce between for kind of design advice or advice on how to use their products and how they'll perform.
I know we've had this discussion on many occasions where a customer is asking us for a specific product, and they want the fixings and the metal and everything to go with it. So I think definitely from a distribution perspective, actually having the material specified and from a single source, it would make life a lot easier than perhaps where it is currently today. And it also, what it does do is it takes a little bit of the onus away from us actually potentially putting forward just an unbranded product, which potentially still happens, I presume, with your products at the moment.
Yeah, it is a journey that I think we're on, and I think the reality is that there are lots of systems out there still that would have been tested with, as you say, that the option to have unbranded elements within them. But I think everything is tightening up, and we're wanting to be as specific as we can with test data to ensure that, as you say, that the risk element is reduced when people are designing and installing or supplying. And I think as well, from a kind of a golden thread data point of view, it also ties together quite nicely. You've got the process that project teams will have to go through in terms of gathering information on how materials are sourced, manufactured, produced, supplied. And again, if you've got that consistency of being able to go to fewer suppliers, fewer manufacturers, I think we have that control over our products to be able to do things in a consistent way and to produce a consistent output of standards that we're meeting and paperwork to go with that.
Okay, so interesting that you look at, from an ETEX perspective, you've got Promat, which is supplying their board products. You're looking at the Dutech range of products, whether that be the metal or the Cineac range of products. You've also got the fire stopping. You've got the SFS within there. Obviously, there's insulation that potentially goes in there from time to time. So you're still on this journey, aren't you, in terms of supplying the complete solution, but you're getting there.
That's right. I think, if you look at the portfolio of products that we have across our different brands, you can see that we've got a lot of things that interface together, that they complement each other, and that you're getting to the point where you could build up whole wall systems, you could potentially do whole rooms, and you're getting to the point where you could do whole buildings. But it's not just a case of having the products that can do that. It's about having the right information to go with that to prove that they work together, and that the performance of those together and all of the interfaces that go with that is there. So I think that's the part of the journey that we're probably on at the minute, is doing more of that testing, whether that be fire, structural, acoustic, to prove the performance of those systems together. And that's probably where you get more of the value as an end user.
Okay, so that's quite interesting, and you've touched on various elements there. What's in terms of those interfaces then, when you've got an interface which isn't an ETEX branded product and it's somebody else's product, how do you resolve that? What is your solution and answer to that?
It's difficult, and I think project teams often struggle with this, and we've noticed that project teams do have a preference for working where they can with one manufacturer because of the issues that can come with this. From our point of view, if you are using multiple manufacturers that are interfacing with each other, there is a limit to how much we could advise and support, because obviously we can't advise on another manufacturer's products or systems. So in that scenario, you probably do come back more to, this is the test standard, this is what we've tested to demonstrate the performance of our products and systems, this is the advice we can give you, and the onus does move back more to the project team to kind of work through those solutions and to satisfy themselves that interface is going to work.
And it's difficult, isn't it, as we discussed on our last podcast, when you're looking at tests and assessments, you can't test and assess everything, can you?
That's right. You're limited by cost, by time, by practicality in terms of how much you can test it.
Well, we are here at the ASFP, and they do give out technical guidance, don't they, on some of these junction details? Specifically, steelwork, I think, is a typical one.
Yeah, you're right, and that's a good point. That I suppose, again, in the absence of being able to go with a single manufacturer, there is industry guidance, and ASFP do produce a number of technical guidance notes. We're often referring to those when discussing with project teams. And again, in the absence of tested data or advice from a manufacturer who's got those multiple systems, that is often where you default to is industry best practice as determined by people like the ASFP.
So do you believe that in years to come that we are going to see solutions, complete applications, from start to finish, all the way through, coming from single sources? Do you believe that's where it's perhaps going to go?
I think so. I think, to me, that looks like the direction that certainly a number of manufacturers are going. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think if a manufacturer can provide multiple materials, as I say, they've got control over the sourcing, the manufacturing, the standards which those are done to. So it gives consistency across that project. But then again, if you can test those different interfaces, prove that they all work together, and we're even getting to the point on some of our systems where we're able to offer a guarantee that goes with those as a whole system. It reduces the risk on design teams in terms of their own liability, but also for the end user, they can have more confidence that that system is going to all work together and perform together for the life of the building. So to me, it does make a lot of sense, and I would say that is the direction that we're going, yes.
I think that's an interesting subject on multi-branding. I agree with you. I do think the industry is perhaps going to move in that direction. It probably needs to move in that direction so that when we go through the golden thread, we've got this complete process from start to finish, and we can see exactly what a construction is and where it's come from.
And I think you've got a challenge when you start introducing lots of products, because you have specialists for each product, and I think that's right, because you want someone who's giving you advice on the passive fire protection boarding, or if it's a cavity barrier, to really know that subject area well and know that product well. So you're never going to be able to have someone who's an expert across the range, but by bringing together multiple products within a manufacturer, I think you can benefit from the expertise in each area, but then also pulling that together in a joint system.
Josh, that's really, really interesting, and a good insight into multi-branding and perhaps where the industry is going to be moving forward. And so thank you very much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.